Hello and welcome to the 7th annual Latinx Games Festival. My name is Jason Vega. I am the founder and executive director of Latinx Games Festival, and I am here with someone who is awesome. I'm pretty sure y'all know who I have here. We have Cassandra Reyna, program manager with 10 plus years experience in gaming, influencer fundraising, and content creation. By the way, badass host and voice actress. What doesn't she do? Queen, what don't you do? What's up?
Oh my gosh, what do I not do? I do a little bit of everything. Chronically, I am just always doing something, always doing everything. And I'm doing pretty great today, Jason. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Enjoying the holiday break-ish. I mean, still can't completely turn off work, but it's turned off long enough for me to put up my tree and hang a Santa's hat on my Super Mario 64 Lego question mark block. But this ain't about me. This is totally about you. And I'm curious. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do in the gaming world?
Yeah. So, hi, Cassandra Reyna here, and I am someone who wears many hats. So, in the gaming world, I started off a long time ago when I was 13. I actually started in gaming competitively, which is something not a lot of people know. So, I started off in competitive in the very, very early days. Moving over to live streaming, being a full-time creator, voice acting, commentating, hosting, working all over the gaming industry with over 100 different brands, just all of that, and then eventually transitioning into gaming corporate, where I worked. What do you call it? Oh, this is so bad. I'm freezing up. It's so bad. Oh man, I had the jitters. But yeah, no, but yeah, where I ended up going from full-time creator to industry, working at Twitch.
Wow. So you started out competitively. So immediately you're just like, I got to kick ass and take names in gaming. Like there was no I grew up with, I'm a little old school here. So I grew up with Atari 2600. Don't tell anybody. It was a hand me down from my parents, and then NES Super Mario. And I started to get competitive around Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. But you're just bored into the competitive spirit. What were some of your favorite video games growing up where where those competitive juices got stirred up in you?
Oh man. I think the competitive juices didn't show up till later in my I want to say maybe 12 or 13. But I actually started off playing Bubble Bobble on Nintendo with my grandma. So that's what really kind of launched my love for video games, because it is and always will be some of my fondest memories, just getting to spend that quality time with my grandmother, and going in Bubble Bobble, you're two little dinosaurs and you blow bubbles and you destroy enemies and you have to get all the way to level 100 and beat the game. However, back in the day for Nintendo, there wasn't saving. So if you died, you had to start all over again. So it was the opportunity to work towards something with a very important figure in my life. And yeah, that's kind of where it all began.
Wow. Bubble Bobble with Abuela. That sounds awesome. That sounds like a solid core memory. Actually, you mentioned that. I actually thought of so my grandmother was really good at listening to people. So she wasn't we had this joke growing up where kids would get for their birthday Christmas. They wanted Batman, but they would get Ice Rink Super Duper Batman. It's not quite the Batman, but it's this off Batman. She would listen to what the grandkids want and ask. And I was just I just wanted a Nintendo game. So she got me some of these she got me for the Nintendo, she found this shoot 'em up called Image Fight, which is actually a really classic game. Now this game called Blaster Master. I just remember playing Blaster Master while she was making pasteles for me that Christmas. This was maybe in 89 or 90 or something. So yeah, it just struck a memory. It's something about gaming and grandmas. They usually don't go well together, but when they do, they're pretty solid. And that sounds like a really core early memory though. Are there any is there a first moment or like a memory from a game that really grabbed you growing up?
Ooh, oh man. That is honestly, I think it might have been Resident Evil. So I remember Resident Evil was one of the first horror games I ended up playing, and it was the PlayStation, the very first one. And I remember I was like watching I was watching a family member play, and I was just like sitting there and watching. And in the very first shot in Resident Evil, when you get into this mansion that's, haunted or not haunted, but there's zombies in there. You don't know that yet. The team enters and they go into this room and he's like, there's blood. And then he goes through the door, and then there's this absolutely epic cutscene for the time where a zombie is like eating one of your team members, and then he turns around and he looks at you, and then he makes like this groaning like sound, and I was just like, oh, and then the cutscene ends and then it starts coming after you, and I start panicking. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you actually have to fight the zombie. This is wild. But I think that was a very captivating moment for me, where it was like I was just fully enmeshed in this story with these officers essentially who were just like, hey, we're stranded here. What's going on with this mansion? And it's a lot more than they think.
I don't think people understand how scary Resident Evil was back in the day. I think they look at it now, especially since a lot of them can be, some of the later games became more action heavy. Resident Evil
Mhm.
1 with the tank controls. Because when you, like, I remember when, like, they give you like a few minutes to like get used to the controls, then you bump into that zombie, and then using tank controls to having to back up and accident like maybe running into the zombie, or it's like these moments where you're just like screaming and not, because it was so new and
Mhm.
so like that what you described is probably one of the more like iconic scenes in gaming, right? But for you, that's like you're shitting bricks when you're
Yeah,
playing it for the first time. How old are you then
absolute
when you when
core
you played that
memory.
game?
Oh my
You're
gosh,
like
I
a
had to have
kid.
been like 9, probably. Yeah, I was like probably like 9 or 10, and I think for a 9, 10-year-old, seeing Resident Evil at that time was just like, whoa. But I also watched a ton of horror already, so I wasn't like too sensitive to horror, but I think it really was just like the storyline that really kind of pulled me in.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's awesome. No, classic game, classic moment, especially for a young person. So like obviously, hardcore gamer, right? You're playing all
Yeah.
the goods, you're playing the classics. What do you play right now? What kind of games are currently occupying your time at the moment?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. So I am, funnily enough, my last name is Reyna. I play a lot of Valorant offline. So I play a ton of Valorant. I've always loved my shooters, especially because I came from a competitive background where I played like SOCOM, Call of Duty, Gears of War. Um, so Valorant has a special place in my heart. I'm loving, TFT. I love trading card games. So I'm very into the current release of Riftbound. Play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and then oh my gosh, Blueprints. Blueprints is so good. So good. It's my game. It's my game of the year, probably for the
Wow.
next 3 years. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to play Blueprints, but it's a phenomenal game.
I'll have to
Mhm.
check it out. That's awesome. Magic the Gathering. Have you been collecting the physical cards? I want to get my hands on all the Final Fantasy ones, but I'm afraid the moment I get a couple of packs, it's going to be like thousands of dollars later, and I'm just like, ah.
I just have piles. I just have piles on piles. You don't see them here, but they're here everywhere. I think appropriately, as we're talking about video games and like, video games that really like kind of shaped who I am and like my love for video games. It was, aside from Resident Evil, one of my favorite titles, just in general of all time. Final Fantasy, love Final Fantasy. And Magic the Gathering released a Final Fantasy collab earlier, what is it, this year? And it was, honestly, it was like nostalgia just has me in a chokehold. So a lot of these are actually Final Fantasy themed cards, believe it or not. So like this is like Sephiroth, where he's like the one-winged angel. It's backwards, but very cool stuff.
Jelly. I love
Mhm.
it though. I love it. Respect. I mean, seriously, because in my mind, like I know how like because you can't just get like one, right? You know, and then like there I have this like completionist thing. I started collecting those Super Mario Legos, and at some
Mhm.
point I had to give up at like wave 6 or something. I just couldn't do it anymore. I mean, I love them, but like you have to stop. But respect and respect for having the physical cards, especially the Final Fantasy 7 one. So like obviously, again, hardcore gamer. So all this is like feed into your love and passion of gaming, and then now we're talking like you start looking at the industry, you're like, I got to get in that, I got to break in. Can you discuss like early career, like how did you break into the video game industry?
Yeah, yeah. So, the way that I broke into the video game industry is actually it's a pretty funny story. And it's an unexpected one. So I was working at the time I was working at GameStop. Like every gamer. We've all done our time.
Same.
Um, I came home from GameStop, my GameStop job, and I jumped on my Xbox and like clockwork every day I would jump on my Xbox. I would jump into a party with some of my friends, and we would, play the latest, the greatest, or whatever we were feeling at the time. And when I jumped into the party chat that day, it was December in like 2014, and I jump into the party, and a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, he was so far removed. I've never seen this man in my life. And he hears me talk, and he's just like, "Hey, are you a streamer?" And I was like, "Huh?" This guy, um, he was an interesting character, but he was just like, and this is how he sounded too. He was just like, like like twitch.tv, justin.tv or whatever. And I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I have no idea what you're on about. And he's like, "Oh, well, like you sound like you could like be one, so you should like check it out sometime." And I was just like, "All right, dude." And I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was just like, I don't know. This guy, he sounds sleepy. And I'm unsure what he's talking about. So, I kind of just, let that conversation fade. But then later on, I was like, I wonder what that guy's talking about. I'm going to go look that up. And I am a very curious creature. I love researching and learning. I'm always researching, always learning about something. And I started looking at Twitch, and I was like, "Whoa, this looks really cool. You know what? I think I could do this." So, Christmas Eve, I believe, of 2014, I was in a Best Buy, and I saw a capture card on the shelf, and I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna do it." So I bought a capture card, and I started streaming. Um, and that was like 10 11 years ago now. And, um and that completely changed the trajectory of my life. All from a random guy in an Xbox Live party who I don't know, uh, who just suggested that I should try it sometime. And and so I did it. I started initially playing some games with my friends, and then I started gaining traction, and I was like, "Whoa, I could do all sorts of cool things with this." So I started like fundraising for charity. I did like my first St. Jude fundraiser. I started taking it a lot more seriously, and from there, it turned into hosting and commentating, being able to voice act. And gaming, it didn't just like change my life, but it also helped me break out of my shell because believe it or not, before all of this, I was actually quite an introverted, quiet person. And streaming, it allowed me to create a space where I could be myself and do things that I enjoyed and with people who also resonated with that. And yeah, streaming just completely changed my entire life.
I mean, not just streaming, but a mysterious, let's just say, sleepy hipster.
Yes, yes.
I think this might be the first time where let's just say like some stoner gamer completely changed the
Oh,
trajectory of somebody's life.
absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't know if I could say that, but yeah, no, he was gone. He was gone.
But not too like not gone enough to sense something, because like you definitely have, like in seeing you, over the years on the internet, and like one or two times in person, but you definitely have like the presence and personality of a streamer, right? But one of the things you actually really have that I think is important just for content creation in general is not even just like the right setup, the charisma, the voice. You have a voice for streaming, which explains your, like your ongoing VO work, right? And voice acting, everything. Like, can you talk about maybe some, because like you did some stuff early on, and you also did some VO for like games and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's funny that I ended up doing any voice acting because I never thought that my voice was interesting or that I sounded like a broadcaster. I I kind of stumbled into that because my chat, as I started streaming, they were just like, "Whoa, you have like a really cool voice." So it's like your voice is like very soothing and then like very fun at times. And have you ever done like audiobooks, Frisk? And that's what they would call, like, because that's my username. They're just like, Frisk, have you ever done any like audiobooks or anything like that? And I was like, no, I never really thought about that actually. So then I started looking into it because they were like, hey, we see something, you should check this out. And every time someone says check it out, I go check it out. So I ended up doing a couple different audiobooks. And I I think the coolest thing that ended up happening was I was streaming one day and this guy who was I had met him at events a couple times and he watched my streams and he was just like, "Hey, I need another voice for this game I'm working on. Do you want to like voice for it?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sure, no problem, dude. Just message me." Um, it turns out it was a spot for Hollow Knight. Like the biggest indie game of like all time. So, I was essentially scouted just because I was streaming. And I think the VO for that was so much fun because when I was talking to him, his name's Leth. He was like, "Yeah, so you have to like kind of just make everything up. It's a made up language in Hollow Knight." And I was just like, "Oh, so I get to choose what I say?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, cool. So my character is the midwife, and I'm, like, in the bottom left of the depths if you play Hollow Knight, and, she kind of looks like, No Face from Spirited Away, um, and she, like, tries to eat you, but I ended up, coming up with all the lines for her. She has, like, pretty much my voice where it's kind of, like, deep and, like, a little bit deeper, and, it's, funny enough, I've seen comments on the internet where people say that my character is the sexiest character in Hollow Knight because of how, like, just sultry my character sounds because it's like she's trying to lure you in, and then she tries to eat you, and, it was such a funny but fun experience, and, yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite things that I got to do in the early days.
Wow, Hollow Knight. Did you? I mean, it obviously like Hollow Knight, right? Silk Song. Like we know this now. Franchise is like one of the biggest games out there. But did you have any idea that it was going to be like Hollow Knight, like when you got the role?
No, 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 never. I see the great thing about being a streamer too is like somebody will ask you a question about something and then you have no idea what it leads to, especially when it's like you just never know who's in chat. So like I think another great example of that is I was playing Among Us and this is at the height when Among Us was just like it was it and everyone was playing it. So I joined a lobby with some friends and a bunch of people that I'd never played with before. Uh, and this girl I'm playing with, she's just like messaging me on the side and she's like, "Hey, do you like do voice acting by chance?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do some stuff." And she's like, "Cool, cool, cool. Do you have a voice reel?" And I was like, "Oh, I have an old one, this one right here." And she's like, "Okay, cool, cool, cool. Thanks. Do you have a contact email?" And I was just like, Yeah, here's my email. I was like, "Did you need something in particular?" And then she's like, "Oh, my dad's watching my stream and he works with VO people a lot, so he like wants to get in contact with you, I think." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. No problem." The next day I get an email from the CW. I'm just like, "What?" And that led to me doing VO spots, TV VO spots for like Young Sheldon and like Two and a Half Men. So, you just never know who is in chat. You just never know. You have no idea. Yeah, no idea.
So awesome because you're like developing a community, you're fostering a community, and that community is also like feeding into, right? They're not just
Mhm.
taking, they're also giving back. And yeah, you absolutely do not know who's in chat. And it's so cool that you're able to get these gigs from your chat, streaming, doing your thing. But it's not just like you streaming, right? You're also, you started to develop these skills and you started to give back as well. Let's talk a bit about your volunteer work as a live stream influencer coach. So like, how did you come up with that? How did you design these workshops for over 100 aspiring live streamers, right? Like, you were working on skill development,
Mhm.
readiness, for platforms like Twitch, right? Like,
Mhm.
what got you started in that? How did you develop that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, for me, I think that knowledge is power. It's not the first time I've said it, and it definitely won't be the last. Um, but at the time when I was working on that program with a couple other industry like creators, it was because at the time, there wasn't too many resources, available for creators to understand, like, what are the best practices? Like, what are things that I should be thinking about? Like, how do I approach my my channel and my persona as a brand? How do I convey, like, what I want to convey? How do I build a community? How do I foster that community? And, and how do I build my presence? So these were all a lot of different questions, and it's just all these different pieces of the creator journey and like the creator evolution. And I was like, I would love to be part of something that helps those creators understand, how do I show up and how do I do these things? So, with a team of a couple others, we created a curriculum where it was kind of taking you through like storytelling, and it's like, how do you tell an effective story? How do you showcase yourself? How do you build your channel? Like, what are the things that you should be keeping in mind? And this is like, I could go into all of the different things, when it comes to being a creator and the stuff you should pay attention to and the other like pieces. But I think that was probably my first venture in being able to provide education for creators and assist them in the journey.
So, in what ways did providing like one-on-one mentorship to
Mhm,
these aspiring influencers? I believe you focused on 20 of them. How did that
mhm.
contribute to like their individual growth? And how did that experience lay the foundation for your work within Twitch?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think working with 20 plus creators, it everyone is dealing with either the same issues or different challenges. And with that one-on-one, it gave them the opportunity, like a lot of like one-on-ones, it gives them the opportunity to kind of be like, hey, these are some of the burning questions that I have. How do I approach my panels? How should I approach emotes? How do I do X, Y, or Z? And being able to provide that guidance and show them that, like, hey, there is someone here that cares about your journey and is interested in being able to help you with that. So yeah, it was very much just all of those things, about the creator journey where it's like, yeah, all the everything, just everything from the marketing to how do I deal with, disgruntled, maybe like a disgruntled viewer, or how do I approach like working with my mods, things like that. So it's like just anything that you could think of when it comes to streaming, it's pretty much is what like I talked about.
So all that work, right? Like all the
Yeah.
nurturing, the mentorship, the developing of
Mhm.
these aspiring influencers directly leads you to a role at Twitch as a social impact specialist. So like when you first stepped into that role, what did social impact actually mean at Twitch, like day to day? And how did that definition change over time?
Yeah, yeah. So, I initially ended up taking the skills and the things that I learned and all that experience and applying over at Twitch and joining the social impact team. And at Twitch, social impact, um it was very much, making a difference, assisting when it came to charity and, fundraising. So when it comes to charity and fundraising, creators are very, very passionate about it. And that is something that is not a secret. There are a lot of creators who are passionate about various different causes and understanding how to empower them as well as empower the charities that would like to work with creators, was very, I would say it was at the center, of a lot of the things that I did when I was on the social impact team. And, I think, another part of my team while I was there on the social impact team was also diversity initiatives. So, supporting and uplifting creators from, diverse communities and showing up for them.
Wow.
Mhm.
So I mean, you actually done a lot of really like innovative stuff at Twitch. Like leading the launch. This is actually pretty cool because like you led the launch of the animal category and animal week. Those are like really big launches. So just so you know, like I watch Twitch, I've been watching it for years. My wife doesn't, but when this launched, she started watching Twitch. So it was like I just thought it was really cool because I would explain to it, she would understand it, but like, when she got into it, she like got it, and like really like wrapped her head around it. I thought that was like a pretty neat thing. Like, how did that
Mhm.
idea even start? And what surprised you most about making it real?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I love animals. Big, big fan of animals. I have a dog myself, and when it comes to the animals category and how that all came to light, it was actually during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, a lot of things, closed. We were indoors, and part of the things that closed are aquariums, zoos, uh, sanctuaries, all sorts of, places that take care of animals. And with everything shut down, if no one is going to visit these animals at these places, they're not bringing in really any money. And, like these animals are important. I think animals are some of the most precious things in this world. So, with everything closed down, it was like, okay, you know, all of these, these zoos and these aquariums, these sanctuaries, a lot of these are nonprofit. So, so part of like, working with like nonprofit work, et cetera, I saw an opportunity to essentially help them. And the thing with like zoos and aquariums, all these places, they have cameras in most of the containments for their animals. Most places have cameras. So what I did was I learned like what they were using, understanding how they could get their video online, and then I was looking to onboard them. And I just started doing outreach to just zoos and aquariums and sanctuaries and everything all over the world. Just reaching out and just going, hey, like, I would love to get you on, like, Twitch. And it was just like some beginner acquisition work that I had started with. And from there, I created the animals category, and gave them a home. So all of these nonprofit, animal, um, you know, zoos, aquariums, they went from having closed doors and not being able to generate really any revenue to being able to grow audiences, locally and globally, and bring money back in for, for all of these animals. So that was like my first really big project when I had joined, and it's one that I'm very, very proud of. Um, just because like, yay, animals, I love them. Also, like going to the animals category is so much fun. Like there was so many innovative things that people did where it's like, oh, it's like you can give bits and then it'll feed these ducks in a pond. Stuff like that. So it was yeah, it was really great. It was beautiful.
Oh, absolutely beautiful, but like a slick, smart move. And also like during the pandemic, like honestly, I can see that being like such a big hit. They think back now, like it feels like 1,000 years ago, but I'm pretty sure when my wife was watching it, we were indoors, because I'm sure she caught it like right around the launch or sometime post launch. But like,
Yes.
um, what a great, awesome, incredible move that is to invite not just to give like existing Twitch viewers more content, but to invite a broader audience onto the Twitch platform. And like, it's a
Mhm.
really cool way. Cause then I also like, she would start watching like some like Lego builder streams. Like she started like going around the platform too. And then
Mhm.
I would watch, I'm like, this is just so chill, So
Yeah.
like, what a good job, great move. And it provided my family anyway with like hours of content. But you've done quite a lot. Like you've really done a lot. Like you played a key role in developing and enhancing the diversity programming through like educational workshops and materials at Twitch. What impact are you most proud of seeing from that work?
Honestly, I think the impact is being able to make said impact for various various creators. So like assisting with the unity moments, right? So like Black History Month, Pride Month, all of those things. That required a lot of work understanding like who those communities were, who were the people in those communities, and being able to give them a voice, being able to amplify them, whether that was through, marketing channels, or maybe it was honestly just directly helping them. So I think one of my favorite things that I ended up creating while I was there was they were empowerment trains, is what I called them. And what that was is trains, the empowerment trains were essentially, I brought staff together. I brought people from the guild leaders, Twitch ambassadors, and we would jump into a call and we would go around Twitch and we would celebrate these communities during those times. So during, like Pride, we would go visit Pride creators, or creators that align with Pride. And then we would show up in their chat. We would show up with love and copy pasta messages. And we would drop like bits, just bits, and just surprise them. And it was really feel good moments. And I think that, support doesn't always come in marketing per se, but it's like the support that I was providing in that program with the other creators and other like fellow staff as well is like, we are supporting and empowering the creators that, you know, show up every day. Um, because, what is Twitch without community, right? So
100%. I mean, and speaking of like community, like what was your approach to uplifting these diverse communities in your time at Twitch? What did that look like?
yeah, I think it's just understanding what they need, right? I think it's all about what is it that they need? What are they, are you listening to what they're asking, and what they're, what they want? So, I think part of that is also education. So understanding that, some creators, well, not some creators, but everyone's in a different place of their journey. Some are just starting. Some people are veteran creators. But there's always still something to learn. And again, knowledge is power. So I think one of the ways that I empowered, these diverse communities is providing education through things like I had a piece of the ambassador program where um, I had ambassadors go in and start with like workshops with the different guilds. So these workshops were very much like geared towards different educational pieces on how to be a creator or things that you should be paying attention to. So maybe it's your branding, like how do I brand? How do I work on my branding and how do I make it cohesive? So, like for instance, for that one, I ended up working with Ambassador Big Nose Bug. She's a VTuber. She's phenomenal, incredible. And she has beautiful branding where her entire stream is a theme park and she is a mascot who works there. And all of her branding is just brilliant. So I had her lead this workshop for the guilds where it's like, this is like how she approached, building her brand and those pieces and these are the things that she thought about. And I know the guilds found a lot of value out of that because if you do not go to school for any sort of like marketing or branding or anything like that, it's not something that comes natural to a lot of people. So, bringing value and understanding what people wanted to learn about and making that happen.
What did this role teach you about communicating complex or sensitive topics to colleagues from the different departments, leadership, external partners, streamers themselves, and Twitch viewers? Because a
Mhm.
lot of this stuff is, especially around the pandemic, a lot of these initiatives are sort of like gearing up and a lot of funding was pumped into it. It was really new for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
for folks like you in that role, you're sort of defining what that means, right? So how do you translate like what you instinctively know to everybody else who may not quite understand what your work entails?
Yeah, I think I was just in a unique position of being able to talk about community needs because of my time as a creator and also being able to speak creator language, right? So I think communicating internally to like a company versus to creators, that's two very different communication styles. And sometimes, doesn't, whatever company it may be, like whoever their community is, sometimes like being able to convey what they're trying to say, um, it just gets lost in interpretation. So it's I think because of my experience as a creator, it makes it a lot easier for me to talk about creators and kind of highlight challenges or what is the true root of maybe a possible problem just because of my extended knowledge of my time being a creator and spending time with creators.
You worked on a lot of campaigns at Twitch. When you look back at all the campaigns that you've worked on, which ones actually stand out to you the most and why? I'm sure it's like hard to pick because there's so many great ones, but what stands out to you?
Honestly, I really enjoyed working on like the Unity like campaigns, like the Unity moments. So that's like, Black History Month and, Hispanic Heritage Month and all of those Pride Month. I think all of those stick out to me because when I think back on my work and the things that brought me joy or the things that, kind of made me feel like, you're doing good stuff. You're on the right path. Um, I think those campaigns were some of my favorites. And it's because a lot of the time it was, it's just uplifting and showcasing, all sorts of you know, different people from different walks of life and being able to spread joy, whether that was like through the empowerment trains, Maybe it was like helping with like some sort of like shows, or I don't know. There's just so many different pieces, but every time especially with the empowerment trains, I always walked away with like the biggest smile on my face. Um, and I think it wasn't just for me, it was also for the folks who got to participate in that. So, I think a good example is, so Science streams, they're a Twitch ambassador. They're also, wonderful friends of mine, I love them. They're a husband and wife duo who work in the, basically ants, sci-ants. So they're like, researchers, scientists. They're absolutely brilliant. But Balint is the husband of the duo, and he has so they have a daughter, and they call her Munchkin. So when we would do like the empowerment trains, we would all be in this call, and Balint showed up for like almost every single one of them, and with Munchkin right on his lap. And so it would be me and like all these folks, but it was always so fun seeing how much fun Balint had, and then Munchkin also getting super excited. So, tiny little, like, I think she's like 3. Um, but she's like getting excited about seeing people getting excited, being shown all of this love, where we're dropping into chats, we're dropping, like bits and like talking, she was always like so excited about it. And I was just like, this is like so beautiful that we can make an impact, but also like seeing him as like a father, like show her like, hey, like this is how we support others, and this is how we show up for others. um and fostering that, I think that's like probably one of the biggest highlights in terms of like campaigns and things that I worked on.
I love that Munchkin experienced the
Munchkin.
dopamine rush of bits, like just,
Yeah.
or just like actually like, feeling like the love, like through the screen, like
Mhm.
digitally, right? I think it's
Mhm.
so cool. They actually, I'll have to check them out. They sound,
Yeah.
if they're are they still streaming today? Like they're
Oh
still active?
yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
they're full time right now. And they also just had another baby as well, which is really cute. But yeah, I definitely suggest checking them out. You could always learn something new there. As someone who loves learning, you're always learning at their channel. Very
that's so
education
cool.
focused. Mhm.
Yeah, I can't wait to check out Munchkin or see how old Munchkin is now. But so you've done this social impact your role, right? You're a
Mhm.
social impact specialist, and you're
Yeah.
you're 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 guiding a lot of these initiatives, and you're doing like really like kick-ass stuff, innovating in this field. And then you become a project manager, right? So this is like you're still like applying the same tools, but now you're bringing on more into your arsenal. So like across, different departments like payouts, discovery, safety tools, global events, your work spans very different problem spaces. What's one project that challenged your assumptions as a project manager, and how did it change how you approach cross team collaboration at Twitch?
I think this is more of like a blanket statement, not necessarily for Twitch, but like just in general. Um, don't be afraid to ask questions and understand like what the teams like that you're working with, like what are their goals. Understanding, sometimes I think when folks want to cross collaborate, whether that's with externally or internally, it's not always about how can like what can you do for my program, but it's like what can we do together. And I think that makes for a much better relationship and partnership in general, and that goes for everything in life. Where it's like what can we like, what are your challenges and what are your goals? What are my challenges and what are my goals? And what can we do to come together to try and close that gap? So I feel like in my work and everything that I do, it's very much like don't always like don't assume that folks don't also want to work in that capacity. Like I think it might be easy to just assume like some people want to be siloed, but you'd be surprised at how much people want to work together when you show up with passion, you show up with ideas, and you show up with curiosity.
Oh, I mean, there's a lot going on in the video game industry right now that can be, like it'll be never ending.
Mhm.
We can talk about it for weeks straight and not tap into like a fraction of what's going on in the industry and the transitional period that it's in right now. Are there any
Mhm.
challenges in the industry that you feel don't get talked about enough?
I think one of the biggest challenges in the gaming industry, and I think this comes from a very empathetic place towards like devs, is like maintaining maintaining that passion um in a time where things can be really tough. I know that we've seen like tons of layoffs, and it's it can definitely be disheartening. I've definitely talked to some friends who are like very down because like you can do such great work, and and then when something like bad happens, it's like it almost makes it feel like was that worth it, or like was I did I do okay or anything like that. And I feel like it really takes a hit at people's like passion and their energy for it. And I feel like it is talked about, but it should be talked about more. And I feel like there definitely needs to be a bit more support and helping reignite that passion for folks who I feel like are like getting crushed in this industry right now. Because I feel like that kind of nerfs creativity. It nerfs a lot of wonderful things that we could probably have, a lot of wonderful stories that we might never be able to hear.
I think maybe the industry as a whole sort of weaponizes the passion that we naturally have because we want to be in this industry and we
Mhm.
want to like make it better. We want to exist in it. So that gets sometimes used or a card that's played against us to keep us
Mhm.
going through like some of the more like crap times.
Yeah.
So like how, with all that being said, how do you stay inspired or avoid burnout in such a demanding field like the video game industry?
Slowing down and appreciating different things in life and making time for honestly adventures. Adventures and living. I think that it's so easy for us to sit at our computers and put in a gajillion hours for something. It's so easy to just be inside all the time. Especially with, like with the nature of our work. It's like just being glued to your screen all the time. It's exhausting. It's very exhausting. Um, and I think that folks need to keep in mind that, like, you do need other spaces, and you need to go out and have other experiences to kind of reinvigorate yourself and, like, energize yourself. Um, Whether that's, going and spending time with friends, right? Um, like, for instance, like, as humans, like, we need each other, and, getting to spend time with others, it, like, helps regulate ourselves, and it really boosts your passion and your energy. Like, for instance, anytime you go to like a PAX, right, or any sort of convention, you always come back, right, and you're just like, oh, I'm energized, let's go, like that was so good, that was so much fun, I saw so many people, I got to see so many cool games, and like I got to do so many cool things, and like I feel so motivated. And, that goes the same for everything else in your life. Like, go outside, go take a walk, go take like a little vacation, maybe go drive a couple hours and go into the mountains, go get lost in a forest. Well, I mean, bring a map, but yeah. But you you don't recognize how much you need that until you're giving that to yourself. And that's like one of the ways that I kind of manage burnout and manage like my own mental health, which is like it's so easy to get lost in this sauce. Go do something else and come back to it. And you'd be surprised too, because sometimes you can go do something else, go on a little adventure, and you'll come back and you'll be like, oh wait, actually, like this kind of just this time away just kind of gave me a little bit perspective. It allowed me to kind of think about something in a different way. I felt like I was calmer walking my dog, and I was able to kind of think through a problem or an issue. Um, that I was just like sitting there in front of my computer for hours. So, but yeah, take a walk, get out, go get away from your screen sometimes. It's totes worth.
No, sounds like it. I mean, you going like do something else, go on in adventures. To summarize all that, I think that's
Mhm,
a great thing to do, because we really, it is too easy to get lost in the screen. And you know, a lot of this work is, whether you're at home or in an office, like you're cross collaborating with so many people, and then there's like the social media element to it, then it's trying to
mhm,
keep up with the news, and then still trying to like play your favorite video games. And if you're a content creator, trying to fit in time to stream or to
mhm.
post, and it becomes,
Yeah.
you become like handcuffed to this thing. And you know, like burning yourself out. Like I've experienced a lot of clarity stepping out. There's some great stories actually of the creator of Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Shigeru Miyamoto, gardening, like having a garden, and then
Mhm,
thinking of the idea for Pikmin. You know,
mhm.
like stuff like
Oh,
that. You
yeah.
know, where like things just like, oh hey, you get inspired. So yeah, like touch grass,
Yeah.
get
It
out.
also gives you more to talk about too, like, especially from, like, a creator perspective. Creators, like, if you're, like, live streaming and stuff like that, you're always talking, right? And it's like, "Oh, let me think, what am I gonna talk about today aside from the video game I'm playing or, the craft that I am doing?" And, that helps create, stories that you can tell everyone. So I remember I went to Italy and I came back and I had stories for everyone. I was just like, "Guys, I was in Rome and I met a cat named Obama." And they're just like, "What?" And it's like you can come back and it's like, "Hey, I actually went out, I did something else, and then now I get the opportunity to tell you about that." And you can see, like, especially when you see a creator talking about, like, something that they experienced, you can see the joy, you can see the happiness, you can see how refreshed they are because they stepped away from their screen for a second. So it really just breathes, like, living life breathes life into you.
You've been in it for a while. You have a lot of experience. If you can give advice to someone trying to break into the industry today, what would it be?
I think I'm gonna approach this from 2 different places. I think from the creator perspective, if you are trying to maybe break into the industry from, like, that side, um, do some research and understanding the different skills that you have built as, like, a creator or a streamer, because that's definitely what I did. It was very much just like recognizing, like, oh, I'm essentially a producer. I'm a social media manager, managing my socials and all of these different things, like all the different pieces that you like manage as a creator. Those are all different skill sets that you don't realize are incredibly valuable that not too many people have, um, and can be leveraged in a different way, especially when you're trying to maybe to like break into, like industry, into like an industry professional role, and take a step back and look at it. I think some creators don't recognize how cool their skills are or how useful they are and how they can be applied in different areas. And as someone in the gaming industry, if you're looking to get into the gaming industry, um, follow your passion. Follow your passion. Follow your passion and don't always settle for the first thing in front of your face. And I think that's, I think that is something I try to keep in mind as well. Because if you're not passionate about something you're getting into, it's not going to go very well.
That's solid advice. This was awesome. Cassandra, this is amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. You are, I was saying it earlier, I've been kind of paying attention from a distance and seeing your come up and seeing you innovate in your field. And, you're now, for someone that was entering, decade plus ago to now somebody that has laid the foundation for those to come, behind
Mhm.
you. Like, you should really, I'm here giving you your flowers. You've done great work. You are an incredible human being. And honestly, this is an amazing, amazing conversation, Cassandra. Thank you so much for doing this. I
Oh,
really appreciate it.
thank you so much, Jason. It has been absolutely wonderful being a part of this and getting to chat with you. I've really enjoyed it.
So how can people find you? Where can they find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So across socials, well, on LinkedIn, I'm Cassandra Reyna. Um, and then on socials, most of my socials are very much geared towards the creator stuff. Just because I'm still a creator. So you can find me everywhere as Frisk with two Ks. Yeah, Frisk with two Ks, and that's on on Twitter or X, and Instagram, on TikTok, on pretty much anything. You type in Frisk with two Ks, you're gonna find me.
If you're watching this, pull the nuggets of information. If you're a content creator, if you're a streamer, if you're someone trying to break in, there's a lot of great info on this episode that we did here. Cassandra,
Mhm.
thank you again. And behalf on Frisk, behalf of Frisk, thank you all for watching the 7th annual Latinx Games Festival. My name is Jason Vega. I'll see you later.